much. It's a long walk down to see you guys. Hi. Thank you so much to AMC Lincoln Square, by the way, for hosting this screening and Q&A. And now, and thank you so much for I'm honored to talk about this movie because I just got to see it a couple days ago.
Oh.
And I know we're among the very few at this point, so it's very exciting to have a conversation with the filmmakers together.
I love her. She's a great
Okay,
actress.
so the writer and director, J.T. Molnar, come on down. I go that way? Okay. And we have the yes, illustrious cinematographer, Giovanni Ribisi. And the film star, Willa Fitzgerald. Wow.
Hairy microphone.
Am
I on?
They're
Yeah.
very hairy. I think it's for cleanliness.
Fuzzy.
I think they have like a little hairnet over them.
COVID
I think
microphone.
that's what it is.
Gonna talk.
Well, there's so much to say, but I will start by asking you. If you
Sorry, everybody.
Drink your water.
Oh, I sat
Jason,
through
did
the
you
movie.
make this movie for all of us who have had really disastrous first dates, so we feel better about ourselves?
If you felt like I made it for you, then I did.
No, all joking aside, I actually think there's so many beautiful things about this movie, so many beautiful things that are disguised within kind of what we come to expect, what we think we're gonna see. And one thing that you do really explore is the amount of risk that we are willing to take for love and for the potential of true love, and how we entrust ourselves to strangers, and how we also see through our own lens, and we oftentimes see what we want to see. So I'm really intrigued in about kind of how you came to that aspect of it, and I have sort of questions that come from there that I'm curious about, but this strikes me as a love story in so many ways, and so I'm just curious about that aspect of it for you.
Well, thank you, Carla. Perfect moderator, because it's a total love story, right? Did you? I'm sorry. I thought it was, as we were, as the plot kind of came together when I was first conceptualizing it, it became very important to me that this wasn't a situation where one character was trapping another, where one character had calculated something and thought about something beforehand, but that it was just about two characters who were very, very damaged, and when they meet, there's a very earnest affection between the two of them that's real for at least a time, And when I had my first dinner with Kyle Gallner and the great Willa Fitzgerald, we talked about what they liked about their characters. But Willa loved the lady. Kyle found things to really love about the demon, and we talked about them actually playing the love story in earnest, and having a real connection until something changes, something shifts. And I was hoping that any of us who have ever been in a relationship that felt really right at one point, and then all of a sudden something just shifts, and you lose it. I thought, most people have had that happen at some point in their lives, even if it's over the course of one night, but also if it's over the course of years or months. There might be a time when something just shifts, and you're looking at that person and you see something else, and you feel like you're in the room with a stranger. And so there's a very clear moment in the script, in the movie, that I'm sure everybody remembers, where one of the characters looks at the other and sees something totally different than they saw a little bit earlier. And so we, even in those final moments of the film, when the two leads are talking to each other, we wanted them to have a real connection and really feel something for each other, even if there's no fucking way it could work out.
Yeah, and you've
Yeah.
named these characters sort of these, they represent these archetypes, right? And sort of how we see, what we come to assume from certain kinds of archetypes, and yet both you and Kyle Willa are play it with such deep and complex humanity. And we as an audience come along the way not knowing when either of you is acting and not, because his character ends up being, quite a good actor too. Not just the actor himself, but the character. So I was really, I was thinking, I'm struck so much about, cinema anyway, movies are about the way we see through a lens, literally and figuratively. And so that really struck me too, Giovanni, with you, because there are a lot of actors turned director. There aren't a lot of actors who also then become cinematographers.
I don't think there are any.
Are there any?
I don't think there are
because I
any.
figured you would know.
I
not?
still haven't found one.
Yeah,
Giovanni Ribisi, everybody.
yeah. Well, the movie is so sumptuous and beautiful in terms of its just textures and colors, and I love saturated colors, and I love the way that you guys have used them in this movie, and so much of it, again, though, doesn't feel like it comes as sort of a construct from the outside or an idea that's being forced onto something. It feels very organic story-wise. And I thought one of the questions I had based on that is, it's very interesting to have a career as an extraordinary actor filling a frame, like being on one side of a frame that we're on, and then seeing it from the other. And I wonder if, and I know you've spent a lot of your life also behind the camera, just for your, even if this is your first movie as a cinematographer, obviously that's been of great interest to you, but did you find any surprising moments where you being an actor informed your position as cinematographer in this, or just your experience of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I grew up in acting. I was a child actor, and really, I mean, next to a camera and the camera crew, and so it's kind of hard for me to not imagine a scene or a shot or setting up lighting without the consideration of the character, where they are emotional, the lens choice, and I think it was a combination of that and also the 4 or 5 month period that we had before, where JT and I it was just JT and myself during COVID and working together, discussing the movie, everything there was about the movie. We actually made it on paper, I think, before we went into production. We were watching movies, we were doing a lot of tests together, and I think for me that really sort of solidified everything. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
It's really, the movie feels so like organic. I don't know how, which I think when you have something that is in a particular genre, which can sometimes be more contrived, there's something that feels very deliberate about this, and very specific, but very organic. And I guess that's, Willa, that brings me also to wanting to talk to you about, you are so wonderful in this movie. You know how I feel. But really, getting the great privilege to get to act together recently in The Fall of the House of Usher, I was a fan.
Everybody watch that. It's very, very good. These two are amazing in it. It's incredible.
we got to jump off the cliff together, and when you don't know someone that well, and you have to just sort of, this often happens in our profession, and you just dive in, and you're like, do I have a fellow swimmer? And certainly with you, it makes it, we all elevate each other's games so much, and you and Kyle are so great together. One question I guess I have, so beyond just that, I think you absolutely killed it. I'm curious about what it was like for you, a woman who has been in this scenario several times before, has probably had a pretty clear way it's going to go, has probably has some ideas about what the responses are going to be, and to kind of end up meeting someone who might be your match and might be your equal, and that things go not the way that you thought, and what that was like to kind of improvise as a character. And I don't even mean improvise as an actor, I mean just for that character to have that experience. I'm curious what you played with that, and because it feels so alive.
It's a great question. I mean, I guess what I see as the lady's fundamental need is connection and being seen. And I think you are totally right. There are many moments of feeling that connection and feeling seen. And I think that there is the moment of utter betrayal and the subversion of everything that she thinks she knows about this person who she's made a very deep and fast relationship with. And I think that for me, the really interesting part about everything that happens after that was finding all of the moments after that initial betrayal where there is still hope, and where there's still the possibility of things going back to how they were before. And I think that continues until the very end. And I think that there's a real beauty in that desire, and I think the purity of that desire for the lady. And I think that was kind of the great challenge and the great joy, and the reason why I love the character so much.
It's I think, again, there's so many kind of dangerous, really exciting, dangerous moments that, like you said, are filled. They have to be filled with hope. Otherwise, I mean, one of the reasons we invest so much is that we do feel all of that complexity, and I want to talk for a minute because it was shot on film. And I think so many people talk about how, texturally rich film can be in comparison to digital, how we feel it as an audience on a different level. It affects us differently, just the way it goes into our eyes, and it's definitely, its effect from the outside is really profound. And again, the richness of these colors, you can just feel it. It feels so different. But I also want to talk about it from the perspective of being the creative people on set with film, because I just remember that moment when I started acting super young, and I filmed mostly on film, and then all of a sudden things started shifting to digital. And on a set, it changed things profoundly, because the preciousness of that time between action and cut, when everybody, the entire crew, it was like this moment of energy of we might capture magic. You couldn't give direction while camera was rolling, you couldn't, and I'm curious, from each one of you, because I know you're very passionate about film too, just
A little bit.
but how that affects, how that felt like as in terms of capturing that kind of electricity and magic that comes.
I love that you mentioned that. It's something that not a whole lot of people talk about. And when I first started doing short films in the late 2000s, everybody was shooting digitally, and on those kind of films, it was low budget films, and the movies I'd grown up with and was able to watch in the 90s, and the movies I was turned on to as I was growing up from the 70s and before were, I always noticed, even when I was a kid, the disparity between TV look and cinema look. And I know that disparity has changed obviously a bit now. There's some really tremendous filmmakers shooting digitally, and I'm a fan of a lot of those movies, but I decided at that point, like, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to shoot film. So we found a way on all those short films. I shot film on my first feature, and then I met Giovanni at the ASC Awards. A friend of ours named Steve Bellamy, who was running Kodak at the time, introduced us, and we both shared a love for celluloid. And so for me, it's become this thing where it's not a choice. It's painter uses paint, and I like to use film. There are other directors who use different formats, and that's totally valid. But I love film, and part of it's the look, big part of it, because I think, you know, the candy coating you see in this movie, the textural differences that you see in this film, a lot of those come from film. Some come from our production designer, Priscilla Elliott, and the color palette we said, and all that,
She's so
what's in the
good.
frame.
The
But,
production design's so beautiful.
and she's incredible. And but a lot of it comes from what's in the frame, and a lot of it just comes from the film. And so the look is just so specific, and this movie needed to be told with that look. And then, you know, like you were saying, there's a reverence when film is rolling on a movie set. The challenges people talk about are the things I love about it. They keep me disciplined, and they kept us disciplined. When you're shooting film on a lower budget movie like this, you have to prep and prep and prep. And we spent, you know, months doing a shot list, and it was pages and pages and pages. And you have to plan. And of course, on the day you can pivot if your location gets changed, or if some executive cuts days, and then Dan Lawler comes in and saves the day at the end. But there's something that happens on a movie set. And I was talking to Barbara Hershey about this, who was just an incredible presence on this movie. When the film starts to roll, and she hadn't been on a set that was shooting film in a little while either, people just, everybody's game is upped. From me to the actors to the crew, everybody knows that there's scarcity involved. And we get this take, and we get this film, and they hear the film rolling, and there's a good pressure that comes from it. And there's also breaks that come from it when there's a rollout. It's frustrating, but the actors aren't overworked. You're not shooting piles and piles and piles of footage. My editor, Chris Bell, who's just tremendous and a creative partner, I don't want to send him piles and piles of footage and make him find the movie. Our job is to find the movie as we're shooting it, and then improve the movie in the edit. So that's what we do. And in addition to that, there's something romantic about it for me. When I'm on set and I hear it and I smell it and I see it and I know we're shooting on it, it's just, there's a reverence. I mean, that is my church, you know? And so there's a reverence that everybody notices, and it's cinema, and we're on that set, and we're making a movie, and there's a gratitude for it, and we're thinking about our ancestors who did it, you know, for generations before us, for the last 100+ years, and it's just, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when I met Giovanni and we started having conversations about film, I knew that I really, really wanted to team up with him at some point and go out and do this together.
Yeah, I mean, it is that. Both of you. It's exactly right. There's a focus that it commands out of a crew and the people that are making the movie, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it forces you to look at what you're doing. It sounds simplistic and maybe, or you, like I'm reducing it down to something, but yeah, I think it really comes down to that. And it's even personally, this is my opinion, and I think there's probably a lot of people that would disagree with you, but it requires a different lighting technique, which has also changed. A lot of the lighting technology has really, fallen towards LED lighting, which, a lot of it's great, but ultimately you can summarize it as being really convenient. It's about being convenient. When you go and see a movie and you go and see a story about somebody, I mean, you go to these extreme locations and you see the extremity, really, the hero's journey, and there's nothing convenient about that, right? There's nothing, and making films is not, it's difficult. It's oftentimes a miracle that a film gets made.
Small man.
Yeah, and so I think that it's just that, and this was definitely a common ground. It really isn't, for me, a choice. And for other people, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of movies that have been shot digitally that are beautiful and incredible. And it really does come down to the story over the tool, right? But yeah, I think this is just something that is my opinion, I guess.
To be fair, I just came down from set. I was on the set of The Long Walk in Canada. I just wrote that for Francis Lawrence and adapted it for Stephen King. And Francis Lawrence is a brilliant the and he's working with Yo, this brilliant cinematographer. And they're shooting on amazing Alexa, and the footage is absolutely stunning. And I have complete respect for the work they're doing, and the work that many other directors are doing on that format. It's just, I feel like this is sort of the life we've chosen, and that's what we're using. And for this movie, I don't think it would have felt right.
Especially when you're talking about saturation and colors, and film just has such a bigger latitude technically that it can sustain that that kind of like really going for that, and also the roll off and the all of that stuff really adds up to what this image was, what this world was.
Felt very intrinsic to it. How about you? Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna pop in. You speaking of, I had never shot on film before, and this was my first experience working with film, and I was so excited to get to have that experience because it's increasingly rare. You knew that. And I think that what I appreciated the most about it was the fact that every shot was so planned, that there was no overshooting, that we weren't getting bonus things just because. And if we had it, and then we moved on. And I think that especially for a movie like this, I think we would have all died by week 2 if we were just shooting bonus footage. And it was with its challenges, notably because a lot of the scenes are incredibly long. And there's one particular scene in which, I don't know how long the scene was, but it was definitely longer than any of the mags we had. And we had to shoot, it's the icebox scene. We had to shoot the first half of the scene, we would have a rollout, and then we would start at the beginning of the scene and just keep going until the point where we had the rollout. You guys would start the cameras and we would just truck on through to the end. And then, so we basically were doing the scene double the amount of times. But it was kind of magical. There was something so rarefied about that experience. And yeah, I don't know. I definitely fell in love with it.
Yeah, I think that feeling of it counting in a different way does come across on screen. Well, I have another character question without, we all have witnessed what we just witnessed, but we can't talk about it exactly.
A lot of phones in the audience.
It's very difficult.
We're being careful. We're being careful.
Just for, and on that note, as a side thing, because I know that I think it's partly my job to say this, but that part of the whole exciting thing about this moment is that on the 23rd, it comes out, and it's really important if you can just say all the great things you feel about it, but not what happens and what the reveals are, because of how beautifully JT has structured this. It wasn't haphazard. It wasn't like they chopped it up to make it work. It's really, really thoughtful, and you feel that again as an audience. I think that opening sequence, which you guys released fairly early, I think right before South by Southwest, right before Fantastic Fest. Yeah. I think that is another really interesting thing about this movie, which is that it, again, since cinema is so much about seeing through a lens, and we see these characters see each other through different lenses, but we're also seeing something as an audience through a different lens, and we're getting a lot of information as film gives you, and we're putting pieces together, and that opening sequence really feels like we understand what's happening. And we put together certain pieces of information, and we paint a story around it. And, and so,
Trying to say we were trying to trick you? What do you mean?
But yeah, and it's sort of, but the great thing is it's also not just about the trick, so to speak. It sort of allows us to unravel it as the movie goes along, and in that process, we also get to look. It's that conversation between, you know, a movie and the audience, where we get to also look at these things that we made a snap decision without even thinking about it, that we assumed was a total fact, you know? So that's so interesting to me. One thing I wanted to ask you, Willa, is there is a reveal quite late in the movie. Am I talking?
No, we were just silent.
Where we hear your character say how she sees the world. I don't know if you know what I mean, but there's a moment where
In the police car?
yeah, and we sort of come to realize maybe what your a little bit more understanding of what you might be reacting to. And I was really curious if I then thought, when I was looking back when I was thinking back at the scenes, I thought, oh, I think I recognized some moments where maybe, you know, what do we do to our reality in order to survive when it's really difficult, and how do we alter what we're seeing in order to survive, you know? It's such a, obviously, I think if you do any study in trauma, that we realize that at certain ages, we're just not in a place to be able to process information, and therefore we kind of, you know, alter our reality in order to survive until we maybe, hopefully, come to the place where we're able to be healthy enough and have enough fortitude to deal with it, and if not, you know, other things happen. And so I guess I was curious if you knew when those moments would be, when your character changes perspective as to what she might be seeing and takes action, or if they surprised you even in a moment of the movie. And if I'm being too ambiguous for people who haven't seen the movie, you know, you can just say,
Thank
answer
you,
whatever
thank
question
you.
you
Yeah,
want.
it's a challenge.
Everybody knows, they all just
Sorry.
watched it.
Well, I mean, I think purely from a text place, JT wrote in,
Okay.
like there was, the script was and is so specific. I mean, I remember being amazed and so excited by the fact that, you know, in the script, JT had written what lenses he wanted to use, what the music was. He had written those moments in the script, and I think that it then became, you know, I think it's the job of an actor to take the scaffolding of the script and like this sort of like emotional, like plot point structure that's given to you by the script, and then translate it for yourself and how you're gonna then choose to interpret that scaffolding, and then you start to kind of hang all your own stuff on it that makes sense to you, that then is the lens through which you see the movie. And I think that, I mean, I kind of already said it, but I think that for the lady, I think that there is such a deep need for connection, and there is a almost self-sabotaging inability to accept that, maybe in some sense, that there's some sort of mechanism that is constantly distancing, because, you know, we often thwart ourselves in the very ways that we're trying to succeed. And I think that, you know, this is just that in a different way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I am a believer in the most personal becoming the most universal. oftentimes, and I feel like this story, in certain ways feels so, like homespun, and so, again, I guess, I feel like, how people came into it seems like a very organic process from, I understand that, I think you and Zeeberg met on a hike, is that a
Yeah. Steve Bellamy from Kodak. Again, our friend Steve, who it seems like everybody knows Steve Bellamy. He likes to bring people together, and he likes artists to meet other artists, and he does things for people. And actually, Willa came on the last big gathering he had, and Jason Patrick came on. And by the way, Jason Patrick did the opening narration for the opening crawl, and his voice is stunning in it, I think. But Zeeberg and I met on a hike. My pug dog was, we have a couple pugs. One was following her along, and we started talking, and we related on a lot of things, and we started talking about missing the days of the single artist soundtrack, like Magnolia, Harold and Maude, those kind of, The Graduate, exactly. And before, she hadn't seen my first film yet, I hadn't listened to her music yet, but we had such similar taste, just like when Giovanni and I started talking at the ASC Awards, Vonnie and I were like totally connected on movies, and we liked so many of the same movies. I had a feeling I was gonna like his work, and I had the same feeling with her. And I went home, she watched my movie, I listened to her music, and loved her music. She has a solo album called Gitsy to the Nunnery that came out a few years back that I would recommend for anybody who hasn't listened to it. But I listened to that music, and we never saw each other again for like years, but we communicated once in a while via text, and I remember her saying, I want to write all the songs for one of your movies one day, because I love your movies so much. And I was like, sure. And then, of course, like 6 years go by, and when I was writing the script, I was listening to a lot of her music, and one of the songs I was listening to was Into the Night, which is from the Nunnery album. And I wrote it into the script, because I like to write songs into scripts that I'm listening to. I was listening to a lot of Chopin, and that went into those reprieves. And so I sent her the script very early on, and I said, listen, do you think we'll be able to license this song for this movie once I make it? And she read it, she loved it, and she said, how about I write all the songs for the movie? And I didn't think that was really gonna happen, but it did. And now her album is gonna come out, I think, the same day as the movie's released. The Zeeberg album.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
And every song except for Love Hurts on the album was written by Z, and they're all originals for the movie. There's only one song she didn't sing, and actually Keith Carradine sings the Love Hurts song with her, which is amazing. And my mom sings one of the songs. My mom, Jenny Pallone Molnar. She sings a song called To Forget You that Z wrote for the movie, and it's just been really, really exciting to have, that as part of the soundtrack album, because my mom is my very favorite singer.
That's so amazing. I know you're giving signals, and I can't see you. How long do we have? Oh, one more minute. Oh my gosh.
Wait, we have something we have to say. There's another actress. There's an actor from the film in the audience, Denise Grayson. Can you stand up so everybody can give you a hand? She played Libby. She gets killed in the hotel lobby. I have a lot of people I know watching this from all over the country, my family and friends, and I love all of them for doing it. And my Aunt Deanie just had hip surgery. She had a hip replaced. I just wanted to tell you I love you, Aunt Deanie, and sorry you can't make it to the premiere, but we're thinking about you here tonight.
Well, you guys, thank you for this movie. There's nothing more powerful and that gets me more excited than collaboration, because something bigger happens. It's just the nature of people coming together who trust each other and who are really skilled, and then it meets, you give the movie away and it becomes yours, and you make of it what you will, and that's one of the most magical moments as well. And so I'm honored to be here talking to you guys, and
we're honored to have you talking to us.
Likewise.
So, Carla Gugino, everybody.
Thank you.
You're a big hand. And thanks to Mike Flanagan for giving us a quote for this movie and watching
Yeah.
it.
We love you, Mike.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Love you, Mike.
Isn't Willa amazing in this fucking movie? I mean, I can't. Thank you, Chris Bell and Christy Hall, for finding Willa for me. And Nancy Nayer. What was that?
Emma Duval. It's great.
Oh, yeah. Okay, questions? No, kidding. We're not supposed to do that. I think, is that it? It was a 1 minute warning that quick? I thought we were gonna get a 10.
I know. Is that,
We're
being
getting
kicked off
the
stage?
cane. Oh,
Cane
okay,
boots?
we're getting the
Okay.
cane. Thank you all so much, and please help us keep the secrets of the movie. You were an amazing audience. It was so great to watch it with all of you.
Thanks, you too.